Good morning. Got a special donk deployment guide for you in Mechabellum. I'm excited to see a lot of new players getting into the game. Personally, I've racked up over 300 hours on the demo before the beta, and I want to share some of the things I learned the hard way and lessen the learning curve. Today's guide is on what I like to call aggressive strong side deployment. Aggressive because units are deployed as close as safely possible to the front line. The aggressive wouldn't do any good without being strong-sided or right biased in this case. That means that I'm going to deploy most of my units to one side of the battlefield, leaving only a stalling force on the other side, just to chew up time so that the rest can play out. The entire point of this deployment strategy is to get an early kill on your opponent's tower. Destroying a tower causes a huge attack and movement speed debuff to the enemy's entire army. This gives you an immediate advantage, so by deploying closer to their tower, it is more likely we will secure the tower before the weak side loses. I've placed my balls behind the fangs in such a way that if the enemy bought snipers or phoenix, the first shots would hopefully connect with my fangs and waste DPS. Other than that, nothing too special here. We get some early snipers to help counter his tall army. Speaking of my opponent's army, it consists most of arc lights and ballers, so an early sniper pick will help push their tower faster and keep more of my own balls alive. Here you can already see the benefits of stacking one side. My forces on the right quickly chew through his and go straight for the tower. The enemy's tower gets destroyed quickly, and my sniper is able to clean up the last ball on the other side before it can get my own tower. There's another benefit to doing this, and that's destroying towers. Gives units XP. You can get some very elite units early doing this, so if you like to play that style, this is what you want to be doing. Round 2 is going to be more of the same. I'm going to reinforce my weak side a little bit with some extra balls to try to keep it stalling a sufficient amount of time. And there's really nothing of note in the card draw. While we watch this play out, I'd like to explain something called Lanchesters Law. Without going into the nitty-gritty, its application to Mechabellum boils down to a simple idea. Dead enemies deal no damage. Destroying a few enemy units quickly is much more efficient than spreading that damage out, and this strategy is meant to take full advantage of that fact. Outnumbering the enemy on the right flank was partially luck, but I could have easily kept pumping that side until a numerical advantage was achieved. I'm going to fast forward through the rest of this round so that we can get into the much more interesting round 3. Round 3 is when the world is your oyster during an aggressive deployment. This turn we have the money to purchase 3 units to flank with and got very lucky with the Strike Specialist. Strike Specialist drastically cuts down the time units need to spend on the first turn that they are deployed to a flank in a vulnerable state. It will help every time we add more units to that flank, giving an insane value for 50 credits. Remember, nothing is free if not taking it pays 50 credits. Placing 3 units is extremely powerful. By being able to place fangs, steel balls, and an arc light, I have effective damage to mob, damage to large, and chaff all in one turn. This strategy is all about momentum, so putting the gas on round 3 is going to be your most common plan. Pay attention to your enemy's formation and adjust the formation of these units accordingly. Remember, you are taking the initiative. Force enemy units to target inefficient adversaries, put them on the back foot, and keep the pressure on. Now the units on the flank evaporated under Stormfire missiles, but by pulling the enemy's forces to the right, my main army is able to strike their tower directly, making the debuff occur sooner. This allows my numerically inferior army to clean house. You can see this playing out as the left side struggles to push through a single sniper and a few fangs, while the rest of my army is free to clean up and go get their second tower. That's going to be a lot of unit XP, and even though we almost lost the round, we're in a good state to keep pushing the strategy forward. Round 4 is an important one in an aggressive game like this. If your opponent gets wise to what you're doing, it can be easy for them to exploit your weak side flank. My choice this time is an Overlord, not because it's the best choice to complement the forces on that side, but because my opponent has 0 anti-air. It's a free minus 400 HP, and gives me another turn to save for my main goal, Fortress with Barrier. Sacrificing Synergy here was likely a suboptimal choice. Allow me to explain why. Synergy would mean that every single round henceforth, that unit and the units around it would theoretically achieve their value and more. By going Overlord and allowing my opponent to counter my units, the round becomes a narrow victory. You can see that my ground forces don't get through to the tower, and if they don't get through to the tower, the left side crumbles and everything else just falls apart. This kind of disregard for synergy can win you games if used as a clincher at low HP, but by doing so mid-game, I'm in a situation where I need to complement that Overlord or risk losing it every round and feeding XP to my opponent. That's where the fortress I mentioned comes in. Fortress with Barrier will protect those units from the initial storm of missiles and allow them to close the gap to the enemy's tower. Fortress is also excellent at killing balls and arc lights so long as it's protected. By ensuring the length and lives of my well-balanced ground force, I can be confident the Overlord will be able to contribute its DPS efficiently throughout the round. Unfortunately for me, I had a moment of stupid and elected to do something else. Into round 5, I anticipated stronger Overlord counters like Sniper or Melting Point, so I elect to spawn another and give both Wasp spawning. This is a blunder I see from a lot of new players, and I want to use my mistake here to help you avoid it. My thinking was that to get the full value out of the Wasp spawning tech, I'd want another Overlord. 2 buffed units are better than 1 new type of large unit like a Fortress, right? Wrong. All they needed was Mustangs, and this strategy was at risk of falling apart at the cost of 1 missile striking my flanking units. My opponent's choice to choose anti-air arc lights this round gave me a large HP advantage. I understand why they did it. With several arc lights on the field, it seems cost effective. The reason this isn't the case is that Overlord outranges the arc light and kills them in a single volley. I'm not going to go over all counter options, but personally I'd like Mustangs or Snipers in this situation. Positioning would obviously be critical. And Mustangs have the benefit of being able to crush through fangs pretty efficiently. As long as they kill my balls, those fangs would have a great target opportunity on my infantry and my Overlords. Round 6, I finally get my fortress down. I can't afford the barrier upgrade this turn, so I elect to do some upgrading around my army and add an extra arc light to the left side to try to do something about the enemy crawlers. The enemy crawlers are giving my units such a hard time. Bangs don't kill them too efficiently, balls definitely don't, and I'd rather have my Overlord on something more valuable. Being unable to get the barrier means my flanking units are at a pretty high risk of being hit with a defensive missile. This would leave the Overlord completely without chaff. The other player has gone Overlords for this round and drops a defensive missile on my army, just like I anticipated, resulting in a firmly lost round. The first major loss of the game, and a sign I need to wrap things up quickly. There are early game and late game strategies in Mechabellum. You can stall, wait for your opponent to heavily invest into something that you know you can counter, and then end the game for them late, with only a little bit of HP remaining for yourself. This strategy is not very good at doing that. Because my units are so close to the front line, if I start losing momentum, I could very quickly start a downward spiral that's impossible to recover from. For example, if my enemy placed a exploding rhino in front of my army, what would I do? I would have to start ignoring that flank, not investing in it, and possibly start losing that and the front line because my attention is split 2 ways. Round 7, I'm finally going to get that barrier down. This is the linchpin to the strategy. Barrier will keep defensive missiles and the first Stormcaller volley off of my units and help them close most of the gap to the tower. The longer they're alive, the more the enemy army will be pulled out of position, and the longer my ranked Overlord can dish out insane damage. I've also noticed my weak side getting crushed a bit too hard in recent rounds, so to make sure there's something left when the enemy tower goes down, I elect for an Inferno. While not being technically the most cost-effective option, spending 400 credits to counter roughly 300 points of chaff units, it adds a whopping 400 damage to what I can inflict, which just might end the game earlier. At this point of the late game, you need to make decisive deployments. A nuke or a powerful card draw is enough to end the game, and avoiding unpredictability will do wonders for your win rate. Now we're going to see the final stage of the plan play out. Beefy flanking units forcing unorthodox deployments from my opponent and pulling his army in a direction he never intended it to go. An aggressive front line, biased to the same side, pushes the tower quickly and puts a powerful damage and speed debuff on the enemy. Once they're debuffed, even the snipers on the left side struggle to kill the Inferno, and the match is brought to a resounding close. I'll end this with a quick summary of everything you need to make this work in your games. Place units close to, but not necessarily on, the front line. Place units with bias to one side with the goal of rushing down the enemy tower. Pay extremely close attention to your options round 3. Tipping your hand round 2 might get your flank stomped, but the powerful options available round 3 can pay dividends long term. By flanking the side you aggressively deploy on, you take advantage of Lanchesters Law and gain an advantage over the enemy backline units by allowing your own front line to advance uncontested. Watch out for suicide rhinos. This is your bane. If the enemy places a revenge rhino in front of your army, you may not have the spacing to avoid it. To handle this, there are two options. The first is to place a sniper with EMP or add EMP to existing units to prevent the self-destruction. The enemy can counter this with the Rhino's photon tech, which renders it immune to EMP's disabling effects. Then you place a hacker, because it's the only way to prevent the explosion from wiping half your army. Coincidentally, this is the first step in the second option. Simply adding a hacker will turn the Rhino to your side before it explodes, but be aware, the enemy will likely target it quickly, and possibly detonate it in your lines anyway. That's all for now. Give this a try in your games and let me know how it works for you. Let me know in the comments what topic you want me to cover in the next guide, and find me in global chat for lessons. I'm happy to help. Subscribe for more guides and sci-fi gaming content, and follow my Twitch account linked in the description for live stream notifications. I'm in the middle of Armored Core Marathon in anticipation of FromSoft releasing Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, but Mechabellum streams are just around the corner. I've been Donk, thanks for watching.